Today on Teach Me How to Vegan. Setting smart goals is how you drive yourself forward for success.
Yeah.
Especially with baby steps to veganism. Like I said, maybe your first smart goal is cutting out animal flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And you set a smart goal for that and you nail it. It's measurable because you know you were successful.
Right.
Now you found your comfort in that. You can set your next smart goal. Okay, now it's going to be eggs.
Yeah.
And I'm going to cut out
Because the
eggs.
learning curve for some of these might be like, for some aspects of going vegan might be steeper for you than others. Like, it might not be hard to cut out meat, but it might be really hard to cut out eggs.
Exactly.
And so, like one step towards plant-based vegan might take longer than the other, and that's okay. So, and that's where, continually being aware and checking your SMART goals is helpful too.
Welcome to Teach Me How to Vegan.
A podcast where we explore how to switch to a vegan diet.
I'm Tony, a health educator, fitness instructor, and plant-based eating program manager for Animal Protection of New Mexico.
I'm Mickey, a stay-at-home homeschooling mom and vegan cook who likes to play in the kitchen.
Our family stopped eating meat in 2007.
And we went vegan in 2016. Now we like to share with others what we've learned.
Thanks for joining us.
Let's get started.
So today's topic is baby steps to vegan. So for people who aren't ready
to do overnight,
ready to dive in overnight, you can take baby steps and kind of set up a plan that unfolds in a timely manner that is appropriate for you.
Yes.
So, like, as we talked about in our overnight episode, we didn't go from a standard American diet to vegan overnight.
No.
That's a very drastic change that we actually didn't make.
Yeah, for us, it was more gradual. We went from vegetarian to vegan overnight, but we had already not been eating meat for a very long time. We were vegetarian for 9 years. Yeah. And it first started, and even with going vegetarian, we didn't even really do that overnight either.
No.
We started reducing our red meat consumption and pork. Pork was the first thing. I stopped eating pork a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. That was an easy one for us.
Yeah.
Because when you saw the PETA video, it was mainly, or it was...
There were a couple things that stood out a lot, and one of them had to do with a pig. And I was like 20 when I was just like, I don't think I'm going to eat pork anymore.
Yeah.
And so I rarely ate pork after that.
Yeah. And then my upbringing with Wu-Tang.
Yes.
caused my aversion to pork.
Yes. Yeah. And then we started reducing red meat consumption. And that, I think, was an organic change. I don't know if that's it's kind of a funny term to use, but it wasn't necessarily a conscious choice. I just realized when we decided to not eat meat anymore that we had a whole lot of red meat in the freezer and not a whole lot of chicken, which meant to me that we were eating more chicken than red meat.
Yeah. I think we felt better when we ate less
red meat.
Yeah, less beef. And I think there was some information in the
history of heart disease in my family alone.
Yeah, so we were like attuned to that information about red meat.
Yeah.
And we were kind of going that route already.
But we still did chicken and fish and dairy and eggs at that point. And then we decided to go vegetarian. And so we stopped eating the meat, but we were technically lacto-ovo vegetarians for a really, really long time.
Yeah, that was that 9-year stretch.
9-year stretch. And sometimes in there was some pesco sprinkled in every once in a while.
Yeah. We did some fish every once in a while.
But then we went vegetarian.
So we had this process, and it wasn't as intentional as it could have been.
Yeah.
And it kind of just, like you said, organic for us. And then once we made the commitment to vegan, it was overnight.
Yeah, that was overnight.
And so that was just kind of how it worked for us. But now there's a lot of people, because the information has
become more mainstream.
Yeah, the abundance of, it's become mainstream, and there's such an abundance of information.
Yeah.
That's causing people to say, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I really want to commit to it, and how can I do it?
Yes.
Because the information wasn't as abundant for us. So we came across, it's not like now how you scroll Facebook and there's 30,000 articles every day about any topic under the sun.
Right.
Or YouTube and Instagram and all that.
So to bring it current, this was 13 years ago that we went vegetarian.
Right.
And we'd slowly been cutting out the animal flesh for years before that.
Yeah. So it was maybe we got exposed to something in a college class.
Right.
Or I read an article in my Men's Health magazine.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But we didn't have like access to all the literature.
The plethora of information available
like we
today.
do now. So here we are, 2020, and people do have access to this information and are saying, okay, I want to commit right now. How do I do this? We talked about going overnight, but now, we're going to talk about baby steps and how to actually make a plan.
Yes.
And follow through. So I've done lots of work working with people, health coaching and personal training, and helping people set goals for behavior change. So we're just going to talk about strategies that you can take to ensure success as you create a plan and commit to taking baby steps, whatever that means for you. One
of the ways to do that is to set SMART goals. Tony educated me about this recently, and I really like the idea. I think I like the steps to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a SMART goal, SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So if you set a goal and you cannot fill in all of those blanks, your goal is not a SMART goal. And it's not something that's going to help drive you towards success.
And what's that saying? Dreams aren't goals until there's a plan. What is this? What did I say?
Yeah.
What is the saying I said yesterday? I don't remember what I said because it was on point yesterday.
I know. It'll come to you and you can say it in a second.
Okay.
So yeah, first you want your goal to be specific. So you want to get clear on what it means to be vegan or plant-based. Get very specific. Do you want to eat only whole foods? Are you okay eating oils? Do you want
the substitute products?
Faux meats? Are you okay with those? Get very clear on what that means.
Yeah.
For you.
And at first you might not be sure. You might be like, no, I'm going to be whole foods. And then you're going to get a hankering for something that is hard to make whole foods. And, you can just go get a little cutlet, for example, for that comfort food.
And here's where the baby steps comes into play, because that's where you don't have to, and we'll get into this in a minute about aiming too high. You don't want to aim too high. You do want to get clear about what your ultimate vision is.
Yes.
But then your SMART goal, you get specific to say, I'm going to stop eating animal flesh.
Yeah.
By this date.
Right.
And that's your goal.
That's the specific
So
part
there's
of
lots
it.
of other detail. Maybe you're eating faux meats, maybe you're not. Maybe it's whole foods, maybe it's oil-free, whatever that is. But your first goal is to cut out animal flesh.
Right.
For example, that's a specific goal.
Right.
And be specific, that means, what does that mean? Animal flesh. That means fish, chicken, beef, any flesh that comes from an animal. Boom. Okay, so you get specific on what that means. The next one is M for measurable. You have to be able to say how you will know if you are successful. So it has to be measurable. By saying you're not going to consume any animal flesh, that's measurable. Because if you do, then that's not successful. And then the rest of the ART kind of help make your goal measurable. The next is A for achievable. So think about your circumstances, your resources, and your barriers to determine if this goal is really achievable for you.
Right.
So circumstances could include your current mental health state. If you're dealing with a pandemic that's giving you anxiety every day, for example, just one example.
Just one.
Maybe you've recently had a life event that is weighing on you, or some other condition that might make it hard to make a drastic behavior change right now.
Yeah.
So make sure that it's achievable for you based on...
Well, and in other circumstances, are you able to cook your own food?
Right.
Maybe somebody else does the majority of the cooking in your house.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be something as maybe big and heavy as, the pandemic. It might be something simple like, I don't really do the cooking in the house.
Yeah.
That's a circumstance that you're going to have to figure out to make it achievable.
Right. So make sure that it is achievable. The next is R for realistic. This is where you look at, am I aiming too high? Is it realistic to go raw, whole foods, oil-free, salt-free, vegan in 30 days?
Yeah, that sounds like a lot to go from the standard American diet to that. You might want to go a little slower than 30 days.
Right. Some people, and this is where some people set themselves up for failure by aiming too high.
Yeah.
If you're a number 3 on the Enneagram, like I am, we are notorious for this. So check yourself before you wreck yourself.
There you go.
And then T for timely. You have to set a timetable or a deadline. This is how you help make it measurable.
Measurable, yeah.
So if you just say, I'm going to stop eating animal flesh very soon. What does that mean? You have to set a date, 30 days, 60 days, by the 1st of this month. Have a timetable, a deadline, or some type of measure of time for your goal.
Mm-hmm.
Setting SMART goals is how you drive yourself forward for success.
Yeah.
Especially with baby steps to veganism. Like I said, maybe your first SMART goal is cutting out animal flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And you set a SMART goal for that and you nail it. It's measurable because you know you were successful.
Right.
Now you found your comfort in that. You can set your next SMART goal. Okay, now it's going to be eggs.
Yeah.
And I'm going to cut out
because the
eggs.
learning curve for some of these might be like, for some aspects of going vegan might be steeper for you than others. Like it might not be hard to cut out meat, but it might be really hard to cut out eggs.
Exactly.
And so, like one step towards plant-based vegan might take longer than the other, and that's okay. So, and that's where, continually being aware and checking your SMART goals is helpful too.
Exactly. And it's a perfect segue into the next recommendation that we have. So first we had setting SMART goals. The next one is figure out what is the last to go.
Yes, this is big.
When you're going plant-based, it does mean taking things out of your diet.
Right.
Hopefully it means adding a whole lot of more new things to your diet.
Yes.
But it does mean some elimination, and you should figure out what's going to be the hardest thing for you and just let that be last. So for most people, that's cheese.
That was it for me.
That was it for you. And we hear a lot of people say, I could be vegan except for cheese. And then I say, okay, go vegan except for cheese.
Yeah.
Once you figure out everything else and you find your routine and it becomes autopilot on being vegan except for cheese, then you can tackle the cheese.
And I think part of that is about like reducing the learning curve so it's not so steep. You know what I mean? And just recognizing like, wow, I really love cheese, or I really love eggs, and that's going to be really hard for me. Or, I know I'm going to crave this all the time. And so knowing what's the last thing for you to work on, I think is super helpful.
Yeah. And as you achieve goal after goal after goal, it builds your confidence to tackle the hardest thing last.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So figure out for you individually, what's your last item to go? And that can help you kind of create your SMART plan. Filled with SMART goals.
Yeah, exactly.
And then our next recommendation
is to look at your barriers. We wanted to pull that one out because there's so many here. It could be your access to food. Do you live in a food desert? What do you need to do to get different kinds of foods, like maybe fresh produce and fruits and vegetables? Do you cook? Are you the one who cooks? If you're not the one who cooks, then that's something that you're going to have to figure out and work on. If you don't know how to cook, then make a plan around, okay, I'm going to learn how to cook, these 3 to 5 vegan dishes, and really focus on learning those really comfortably. Or like, I don't even know how to cook oatmeal. Look on YouTube and recipes and practice making oatmeal. Just figure out what is that barrier. Do you do the shopping in your home? If you're not the one doing the shopping, then it's going to be more challenging to choose your foods.
Right.
And choose how you're going to prepare them. If you're not doing the shopping, maybe your partner or a roommate, or you live in the dorms or something, you have to work around that.
Right.
And then another thing, what control do you have over your food choices?
So if you're a young person living with your parents, there's that dynamic.
Yeah.
Or like if you live in as part of a larger family unit and you cook, family style meals. If you have a sudden change in diet, how's that going to play out? Yeah. So what control do you have?
Yeah.
If, like you said, if you're in a food desert, or if you utilize different resources to access food, what choices do you have, for example, at food banks and food distribution and so forth?
Yeah. I know locally some food banks here have like plant-based milks and stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe that's an option. If you are utilizing a food bank, maybe look and see if that's an option, or ask them, do you ever get plant-based milks? And maybe that's something to explore too.
So when you're looking at your barriers and looking at how to overcome them, that's one way. Definitely always ask the questions. Back in the day when we were on WIC, we asked about dairy alternatives.
Yep.
And the doctor was able to get us tofu and soy milk instead of milk and
eggs.
Yeah. And I didn't know that was an option.
Right.
And it's not like an advertised thing. You think WIC is
set in stone.
Yeah, you think it's a package deal. This is what you get. But since we asked and worked with the doctor, we were able to get soy milk and tofu instead. So who knows what other options there are for you in different situations.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit more about resources towards the end.
Yeah.
So really helps to look at all of your barriers and have a plan for overcoming them ahead of time.
And sometimes things crop up that you didn't think about, and just take a breath and figure out like, okay, how can I handle this? How can I work around this or with this to achieve what I want to achieve?
Right. And then another thing you can do, which this will take a whole episode to talk about, so we'll do a whole episode on this, is assess what stage you are in. So there's a great model that I've used for health coaching and helping people make behavior change, which is called the stages of change model. And it's so enlightening to be able to look at what stage of change you're in and apply different strategies to help move you along in that stage.
Yeah, it's actually a really amazing tool because you can use it for probably anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Any behavior change, you can apply it to, quitting smoking, exercising more, getting better sleep.
So can you just give us quick and dirty, tell us what the categories of the stages of change are?
So stages of change is pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and then lapse and relapse.
Okay.
Those are the stages of change. And for each stage, it's easy. Once you have a grasp of it, you can determine what stage you're in.
Yeah.
And then there are specific strategies you can apply to move you on to the next stage so that you eventually get to where you've made your behavior change and you're just maintaining it. You're in maintenance.
Awesome. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned for that podcast.
There will be, we'll do an episode on that. So another recommendation we have for when you're taking baby steps to going vegan is to refer to our recommendations from our previous podcast where we talked about going vegan overnight.
Yeah, these are some of the things that are just across the board helpful regardless of the way in which you're moving towards plant-based.
Right.
And one of them is to veganize your top 5 go-to meals. And that's not the ones that are like your favorite, fanciest or labor-intensive, like Tony loves chili rellenos. Well, that's taking a giant chili pod and stuffing it and batter and frying it, all sorts of stuff.
We don't eat that every week.
We don't eat that
or every
week.
Month.
Yeah. We're talking about the ones that, like, when you are exhausted and you come home, what do you make that is quick and easy? Veganize those, and then you can move on to comfort foods.
Right. The meals you eat most often.
Yeah.
Veganize those.
Yeah. And then research what foods you already like that are naturally or accidentally already vegan, like Oreos and Nutter Butters. Sweets that are already vegan.
Yeah.
Cookies that you can find that are already vegan.
Maybe you enjoy hummus sandwiches.
Yeah, hummus sandwiches, like hummus and veggies and, avocado sandwiches, all sorts of things. Just look at what you already eat that might be accidentally vegan or that are very easy to make vegan.
Right.
Like it's just taking something out.
Right.
It would be accidentally vegan. And then look locally for vegan restaurants in your area that you can try. And then also do some research on places that you eat out often with friends and family and see if they have easily veganized meals.
Right.
And because you could just Google, name of, a fast food place or a restaurant in your area. And if it's, relatively popular and put vegan after it, there's probably a blog post out there.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
So... And then lastly, learn to read food labels and learn about vegan alternatives. So like whey and casein are milk derivatives. So those items with it aren't vegan. So understanding those kinds of labels and how to read them is really good. And we go into that more on our previous podcast.
Yeah. And then just familiarizing yourself with the alternatives, the faux meats, you know, Gardein, Beyond, Impossible, Morningstar. There's so many brands out there.
Yeah.
And you can do beef crumbles, you know,
chicken strips, nuggets, cutlets, all sorts of stuff.
All the things.
Yeah.
There's milks, there's butters,
cheeses.
It's all
yogurts,
out there. It's all out there. Just
Cool Whip.
whatever you need.
There's probably a vegan version.
There's a vegan version of it for you.
Yeah. I tell people sometimes anything you can make, I can make vegan.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
And there's been very few things we haven't been able to veganize.
Right. And some of it is even hard to tell the difference, like the soy riso, the soy version of chorizo, which we just had for breakfast this morning. It's so close to the pork chorizo that I grew up with.
Yep.
That's amazing. It's amazing how similar it is. So check those out. Look into it, and that's how you can recreate all those familiar meals you grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, for this Baby Steps episode, we just have explore your resources.
Mm-hmm.
So many resources out there to help you along your journey and along your SMART goals. You know, we talked about looking at barriers, and then part of, the opposite of looking at barriers is looking at assets.
Assets, yeah.
Looking at your resources. APNM, our website, we've got recipes, classes. There's our vegan dining guide for New Mexico. We have a blog with useful information, and we always link out different resources and recipes in the blog. And then we have our monthly emails with updates and recipes and stuff like that you can sign up for. Vegan Outreach has a great 10 Weeks to Vegan program that you can sign up for, where you get one email a week for 10 weeks that has information about nutrition. They have info about the vegan alternatives. Those are written by a registered dietitian who is the founder of Vegan Outreach. So it's nice. Solid information. Yeah. And I'm really a fan of that one because they don't bog down your email.
Yeah.
And it's not like information overload.
Right. Sometimes it's
one
too
a week
much.
for 10 weeks.
That's good.
And maybe that's your timeline for your SMART goal is 10 weeks.
10 weeks.
That's achievable and realistic for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So maybe that's your thing. There's also PCRM, which is the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They've got a 21-day kickstart program, which is awesome. I think that's more for people who are like super ready, because it's a kickstart. So they send you meal plans, shopping lists,
so it's
recipes.
More in depth.
It's in depth. It's for when you're really ready to go and do this health journey.
Yeah. And you just discovered they made this into an app also, and we were exploring that, and my goodness, it looks like a good app.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's with like shopping lists on the app for the meal plans that you're doing.
You can check them off as you go.
It's a really well-designed app, it looks like.
Yeah, and then there's a database of recipes at your fingertips with that app too. It's really great. There's also, looking at food banks and food assistance programs, there's kind of lots going on right now because of the pandemic, but also just in general, before the pandemic, there were a lot of good resources in this regard. For example, our local food bank, the Roadrunner Food Bank, they have a healthy food center where you have to get a prescription from your doctor, but they've got just a plethora of plant-based foods in there. It's lots of fresh produce. They have plant-based milks in there, peanut butter, beans and lentils, all the staples for plant-based eating.
Yeah, plant-based staples, basically.
Plant-based staples.
Yeah, and then that's where you would do classes and stuff to teach people how to make plant-based meals or options with the stuff present at the food bank.
They make,
And so there might be something like that in your local community, and you just got to find it.
Right, exactly. So there's great resources like that. Right now, APNM and Vegan Outreach and other organizations are doing food assistance and food distribution of vegan food for those in need. There's also chapters of an organization called Food Not Bombs in different places, and that's a vegan organization, and their mission is to share vegan food with people.
Yeah.
So if you keep a lookout for that or research that in your area and see where they're going to be at, that's where you can access free vegan food as well. Another local organization, Positive Links, is doing food assistance for humans and animals.
That's great.
So that's, a resource for people in our area. And, who knows, if you're not in New Mexico, that, there
might be something similar in your area.
Quite possibly similar things going on. So just check out all the resources available to you to help you on this journey. There's always classes going on. Anytime you can get on a webinar with, a nutritionist or a dietitian, somebody that's really well versed in nutrition. And bonus, if it's a registered dietitian, they can answer more in-depth questions. And a lot of those webinars are available for free to anyone that can access them through internet. So much out there.
Yeah. And then lastly is nutritionfacts.org and the Daily Dozen. And the Daily Dozen is based on tons and tons of research from nutritionfacts.org and how to get everything you need to be successful and healthy on a plant-based diet.
Right.
And I kind of liked the Daily Dozen for the aspect that you are adding to your plate. And so sometimes it feels like it's easier to add something, like it's easier to add a new habit than to take something away and stop doing something.
Right.
And so it's almost like if you're adding the Daily Dozen, which is like fruits, vegetables, a little bit of nuts and seeds and cruciferous beans, you're adding all those things, you start crowding out the other stuff.
By the time you get your Daily Dozen, you don't have no room for no candy bar.
Tony's done it a couple times and he's just like, I just need to go to bed and get some sleep because there ain't no room. I don't want no ice cream tonight.
It's a fun challenge for people who like the challenge.
Yes.
I quite enjoy it, ticking off the boxes. But it's, like I said, it's once you've eaten all that food.
Yeah, it's a good amount of food. And so sometimes, with habits, like you want to, like add in a 15-minute walk as opposed to taking out, like, I'm not going to watch TV tonight. You know what I mean? Whereas the adding in sometimes makes it a little easier for those behavior changes. And so I like the Daily Dozen for adding in the food to crowd out the other stuff.
Right. I also love it because it's a good reminder to have a variety of foods.
Yeah.
It reminds me to have berries every day as opposed to just random fruit. It does have checkboxes for random fruit, but then there's also a checkbox for berries because of the antioxidants and cancer-fighting properties of berries.
Yeah, it's
Same
so
thing with cruciferous vegetables. It helps remind me to focus on non-starchy vegetables as opposed to just eating potatoes all day, every day.
Yeah.
And the reminder for greens. I've never had greens on my radar so much as I do after using the Daily Dozen.
Yeah.
And then, so the Daily Dozen, like you said, it's from nutritionfacts.org, which I highly recommend. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. One thing I love about that website is you can go there and search for like anything under the sun, nutrition related, and there's a video for it. They do like 5 to 10 minute video clips where they review all the research on that one topic. So it's so concise. It's like quick little bites,
and it's meant for like regular consumption. Like it's not worded like for science. Yeah, exactly. It's like for all us regular folks.
Yeah.
That aren't trained in that.
All the now that I'm just thinking of the most random things,
Yeah, like you could probably go search zinc.
Yeah.
How do I get zinc on a plant-based diet? And there's probably a video on it.
Yeah. Well, recently I was like, how do smoothies, is it more beneficial to eat the food in a smoothie than to blend it up and drink it as a smoothie? Like, how does it impact your gut health? How does it get absorbed into your body differently? All that type of stuff.
Like to eat it in its whole form as opposed to smooth.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's the difference? And sure enough, there was a fantastic 5-minute video that educated me all about that. And I can tell you all about that right now.
Nice. Yeah.
So that's the cool thing about that website. And it's all free, which is wonderful.
Wonderful.
So look at all the resources out there. There's so many that are free.
And if you don't know where to start, just start with the ones we've suggested. Vegan Outreach, PCRM, nutritionfacts.org, our website, APNM, and just start there. And then the internet being what it is, you will branch out.
It'll happen naturally.
It will.
All right. So that kind of wraps it up. Stay tuned for more episodes on how to make the switch and how to apply different strategies to help you go plant-based and have fun on your journey.
Yes. Have fun.
Catch you next time on Teach Me How to Vegan. Thanks for joining us. We release new episodes every 2 weeks. You can always email us at plantbased@apnm.org. Check out our website, apnm.org/plantbased for classes, recipes, and more resources.
See you in 2 weeks.